Good morning, everyone. I'm very pleased to welcome distinguished panelists. So on my left, I have Hanna Araya Selassie, who is a Deputy Commissioner at the Ethiopian Investment Commission, closely following up the industrial parks, development, operation, and promotion. And a lawyer by training, now promoting investment. A very warm welcome, Hanna. And then I have on my right, Lelise Name, probably the youngest CEO to hold a position at the Ethiopian Industrial Parks Development Corporation. And in her portfolio, she runs a total of somewhere around 1.2 billion birr worth investment, developing, operating, and managing those parks. And again, I very much welcome you to Tex World 2020. And Eyob, on my right again, is a managing director of Desta Garment, one of the best, I would say, local companies that is producing and exporting garment over so many years. And if I am not mistaken, this is your fourth time attending the Tex World 2020. Again, I welcome you. So my name is Belacho. I am representing GIZ and moderating this event. I'm an advisor for the German International Cooperation for Development, GIZ, especially working on the special initiatives for jobs project, supporting Ethiopia and other 8 African countries. So let me start with Hanna. So the title, the topic of our discussion is a new opportunity for sourcing, focusing on Ethiopia. We know that the country has been going through a number of new developments, and particular interest being the new investment legislation that was issued last year, if I'm not mistaken. Could you please highlight at least 3 or like few areas that have contributed to the new development and created the new opportunities for sourcing for apparel and industry in general? Yeah.
Thank you, Dr. Belacho. It's a pleasure to be here. Let me start off by explaining a bit why Ethiopia is overall an attractive destination for sourcing for manufacturers in the apparel and textile sector. And this relates to 3 main developments, I would say, in the country. One is significant public investment that has been going into creating a conducive environment for investment, particularly in the textile and apparel sector. So as most of us here would know, the Ethiopian government has been investing heavily in creating the basic infrastructure, be it in transport and logistics, as well as the industrial parks as well, which Ms. Lelise will explain further. So this has created a very conducive environment, a plug-and-play environment for textile and apparel manufacturers to locate and produce for the international market. So that has been one significant development. And then secondly is the creation of a conducive regulatory environment. So the Ethiopian government has set a goal for itself to make Ethiopia a manufacturing hub for Africa, particularly in the textile and apparel sector, by 2025. And in line with that, over the past years, we've been introducing a number of regulatory reforms to make it a conducive environment for manufacturers operating there. And as you rightly noted at the beginning, we've been implementing an economic reform, part of which has been the revision of the investment law. What the investment law does is we have done an exercise of identifying the bottlenecks for investment, for improving the business and investment environment in Ethiopia, and the legislation improves on those. So some of the significant reforms it brings about is one, in terms of investment administration, recognizing that previously the federal structure creates some complexities for investors operating on the ground. Then how do we make sure that the federal government is better coordinated with regions is one area that it tries to address. So by creating a platform for an intergovernmental council for investment, it ensures that whatever challenges investors face on the ground is properly discussed and addressed on a timely basis. And then another big thing that's introduced as part of the legislation is this moving away from the positive listing to a negative listing. What that means is that the legislation currently on the ground lists specific areas that are open for foreign investment, and anything outside of that is closed for foreign investors. So just to give some practical examples of how that has been difficult. So for example, a thread manufacturer, which is a very important element in the textile and apparel value chain. So far, it's not explicitly open for foreign investment. Because of that, we've had some requests from foreign investors who want to come in, start thread manufacturing, but we haven't been able to accommodate those. But under the new law, we will only list a few areas that are closed for foreign investment, everything else being open. So under that, it opens up possibilities for building the whole of the value chain. So to ensure vertical integration, and so this is another very important development. So with these and similar interventions, we have been able to create a very conducive environment for manufacturers and as well as companies that are looking to source from Ethiopia. But I think overall, what is the new investment law and the overall economic reform, what it indicates is that there is a very strong government support for this sector. So we have prioritized this because of the textile and apparel sector, because of its potential for job creation and exports. So this being a very primary goal for the government, we will continue, to identify whatever challenges are faced in the regulatory environment and continue to improve on those. And then the third and related point is the issue around sustainability. So in prioritizing the textile and apparel sector or light manufacturing in general, the government has very much been committed to sustainability, both environmental and social sustainability. So in that, in the industrial parks, as we'll hear later, they were built with the purpose of checking off this environmental sustainability component. They have state-of-the-art technology in terms of waste management and others, but also on the social sustainability aspect. So over the past years, we've been looking at how we can not only create jobs, not just the number of jobs, but how do we ensure that these are decent jobs that we are creating for Ethiopians within the country. And one big development in that is the new labor proclamation passed last year, which sets out the principle of setting a minimum wage. So that process has been kick-started. So there is now a wage board that's working on defining what that minimum wage will be. So it's a very consultative process, and we expect that over the coming months we will reach that stage around setting the minimum wage. But the principle has already been put in place. So such interventions will make sure that we remain committed to not just creating jobs, but also decent jobs by ensuring the social sustainability of investments coming to the country.
Thank you very much, Hannah, for highlighting these important developments. And I will now move to Lelise. Ms. Lelise, if you could please talk about the industrial parks, including the type of investment that are located in the park, how many parks we have, and what are the potential for future investments, and those things. And I look forward to hearing to you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Dr. Belacho. It's a great pleasure to be here. The Industrial Park Development Corporation has been built almost 12 industrial parks that's just been owned by the government, but also we have more than 8 private industrial parks. So in these industrial parks, 8 of them are under operational, Mainly it's specialized on garment, textile, and laser products. And we also want specialization park on pharmaceutical and ICT. So mainly we have, in this 8 operational industrial parks, we have more than 65,000 workers, and we have more than 46 anchor investors as well. So we have a conducive environment for the investor to be there and to start their production. So they might only need to bring their machine to start their production, and if they want to build their own industrial park as well, there is a conducive environment to give them a land and to build their own infrastructure. So the main thing that we have a unique environment in the industrial park are we are very sensitive to be an eco-industrial park. We are very concerned on sustainability, and we are very concerned on the providing a good service for the investors. That's how we implement the one-stop service inside the industrial park. So when the investors arrive to the industrial park, they don't want to go out of the industrial park because they will get all facilities inside the industrial park. So this is how we are trying to implement our industrialization in Ethiopia. Not only that, most of our industrial park are suitable for the logistics system, and then they're very, we have more than 65% of young population to be hired inside the industrial park. So they can easily find, and we are very competitive, and very they can adapt technology newly with easy way. So this is how we are thinking to have in the industrial park. So for the future in 2025, we are thinking to have 30 industrial parks. And this 30 industrial park, 15 will be built by the government and 15 will be expected built by the private sector. So now Ethiopia is on the way to prosperity. So on this side of prosperity, we need a private developers, private investors to engage with and to use such kinds of incredible opportunity in Ethiopia. So this is my word.
Thank you very much, Madam Lelise. Now I pass on to Ayob, who has a unique presence here because he represents the private sector. We would definitely like to hear from you as well, your experience in producing in Ethiopia, even exporting as a local company, not placed in the industrial parks, and yeah, those things that would interest us. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Balacho. And as earlier mentioned, even though I'm not outside, I'm outside the industrial park. The industrial park development and the investment regulation has played a key role for us to grow with many foreign investors. It has opened our eyes on how to grow the business, develop our garment industry to be competitive. The key part being the sustainability and compliance, which is a key part for exports to Europe, European market, as well as to US. So we have learned a lot with the industrial parks and the many foreign investors. And of course, this has also contributed to many buyers visiting to Ethiopia. And the government has done very well in marketing Ethiopia as a hub for apparel sourcing. So with that, of course, as a private sector, we have to invest more, educate ourselves more, try to be competitive, and grow the industry. And that has been what we have been doing. Now, instead of just doing a small-scale industry, we have learned from the investors that have come into Ethiopia and many industrial parks that garment industry is not a small-scale industry, but you have to be able to expand, grow bigger, hire more workforce, so that you are able to compete and do the delivery to customers on time. And of course, all of this requires a lot of work. We have to work with GIZ, for example, on how we can be able to put more compliance for the many audit certification required. And we're happy that we have passed many of the social compliances to be competitive and export to many of the buyers in Europe. So we will have to invest more. Of course, there is a challenge. Training the workforce takes time, and whether it's a social skill or the actual training of sewing machines. All of this is a work in progress, and it's a continuous work that we are doing.
Thank you very much. So if anybody has a question, obviously it's open. You can interrupt me, but in the meantime, I can also, I may probably ask you, I can start with Hannah. Ms. Hannah. Of course, everywhere we go, there are challenges, right? And Ethiopia can't be an exception. If you could mention some of the challenges that normally sourcing companies mention when it comes to Ethiopia, and what the government is doing to address them, that would be very, very useful.
Thank you. So, in thinking about challenges, particularly for the apparel sector, one that we hear time and again is the challenges related to logistics. So as a landlocked country, and given that the industry is very much time sensitive, the kind of lead times that most buyers operate with, some have concerns around the logistics sector. And precisely because of that and our focus on promoting the textile and apparel sector, one big development as part of the investment law revision has been opening up the logistics sector. So until recently, the logistics sector is completely closed for foreign investors, and that has meant that some inefficiencies and that come with local operators have been a big challenge for manufacturers, and this is an issue we very much recognize. So as the Ethiopian Investment Commission, we've been pushing for the opening up of the logistics sector so that you have world-class service providers in the logistics sector coming in and supplying those services. So it was partially opened up in 2018, and since then we've seen a lot of interest from all the big logistics service providers to come in and start giving that service. We're under the new investment law, we're opening that a bit further, so that we get these service providers to come in. So the logistics related challenge is one. Second is the related challenge of customs. So for that, especially within the industrial parks, over the past years, we've been in discussion with the relevant authorities to implement an expedited customs procedure, especially for industrial park manufacturers who export 100% in the case of textile and apparel manufacturers. We have been able to put in place an expedited process where they don't have to go through lengthy and very time-consuming processes. So these are some of the interventions we've been taking.
Thank you very much. And you mentioned logistics, and that is indeed the most important, probably, cost factor as well. And I'm happy that the government is doing to improve on those things. Ms. Lelise, if I can come to you and ask you, what are the steps required for a new locator or a new investor who wants to, for instance, establish in one of your parks? I know you can respond to this question together, but I will ask you if you can highlight what are the steps required and how long relatively it will take for a company to get a place in one of your parks.
Okay, thank you so much. I prefer EIC to respond this, but I will try to respond on the days and then what's the process. So if a new investor wants to visit or to rent our industrial park, they go directly to the investment commission and discuss with them and then sign MOU with them, and then if they directly came to IPDC, we will select their area, and then they can start immediately within 1 or 2 days to finalize. But there is some process that needed to be implemented inside the industrial park regarding to the registration. So in 1 week way of days, they can start shipping their machinery and start implementing their production inside the industrial park. So this is how a very easy, conducive environment. And now the government have taken initiative of ease of doing business. So one of this principle is to make suitable environment for the investors. Now Ethiopia has opening all opportunity for all investors to get what's basic things to implement inside the industrial park. So before implementing this industrial park, when the investor come, it might take 1 up to 5 years to get all the process. Now it's going to 1 week. So it's a grammatical changing that the government of Ethiopia has been implemented in Ethiopia. So I would like all investors to visit Ethiopia and to see this incredible opportunity that we have in our hand.
Anything that you want to add, Anna? No? Okay. So, Eyob, if I may ask you, if there are options A, B, C, in terms of sourcing as countries, and then what is it that you think is an advantage to be in Ethiopia and not in country B and C? Yeah.
Well, I believe Ethiopia is really a sourcing destination. One, as we see from Her Excellency Hanna and Her Excellency Lelise, the government is committed. The government is committed to make Ethiopia a textile and apparel sourcing. And this has been clear with the actions taken and the many policies being implemented. So the government is moving forward, and we as a private sector, we have to move forward as well. We have been in the industry for well over 25 years, and we have seen changes, and this is a fast change that's happening in the last few years. So that is a commitment that the government has from top level to solve any issues related to apparel and textile, as we have seen, whether it be logistics and having the industrial parks. This really shows Ethiopia as a destination, and this is something you will not find in countries B or C. So Ethiopia remains the A. And we also feel that when you look at the workforce in Ethiopia, there is a commitment. We may have a lower efficiency than the Asian countries, but the quality of stitching is high. Stitching quality in Ethiopia is very well developed, and training continues to be done. The workers' commitments are clear, and that really shows that we can. It's a new destination for sourcing, but very soon will be the top place for destination. As the efficiency grows, the quality of stitching grows, Ethiopia is a destination for sourcing.
Thank you very much, Eyob. So, anything? Yes.
Hi, good morning. Ozan Özdemir, Managing Director of Support Limited. I have a question regarding specific goals you have. I mean, we work on some projects also with Desta, for example, and when we have to describe the situation in Ethiopia, we are looking for numbers, and some of your colleagues gave us also some numbers. Thank you for that. But when I look at the numbers and I see Bangladesh making around 30 billion or even more than 30 billion US dollar export with textiles and garments, what are your goals? And the number, correct me if I'm wrong, but it is 150 million US dollar export last year. Is that a correct number? So I see a lot of potential as well, but what's the roadmap? What do you think, like in the next 5 years, or when do you gonna hit the first billion?
Let me respond to this.
Yes, yes, please.
Thank you. Yeah, the numbers are very important, as you said, and the goal we've set for ourselves is a very ambitious goal of hitting 30 billion by 2030. So that's so the current numbers we are now at around 150 million. We have a long way to go, but with the number of industrial parks that are underway and becoming operational, that's the goal we've set for ourselves.
So when you want to hit 30 billion in 10 years, the then you're simultaneously working at the backward linkage as well, right? Besides having the challenges with the customs, which even Bangladesh still has, besides having the challenges with logistics, landlocked and the Djibouti port, what about backward linkage? Because people are betting on Ethiopia because you have the cotton, but the cotton at the moment doesn't have the quality you need to actually produce and also farm. So that's also I think one of the major challenges if you look at this goal you set in 10 years. So how is it, what work is being done on that side?
Absolutely. So, as you rightly noted, unless we create the full of the value chain within Ethiopia, we cannot reach this number. So, in recognition of that, I would say as a country, we started with the end of the value chain. So, if you look at most of the exporting companies, they are garment manufacturers. But right now, we have a number of fabric manufacturers in the pipeline. So, you have very big companies, especially in Adama, Dredawa, in some of the industrial park, which will soon start making the fabric. And then you go down to the yarn and then eventually cotton. Because in selecting the textile and apparel sector as a priority, one of the things we looked at was exactly the country's potential for producing cotton. We do have organic cotton, which is a traditional industry, but there are challenges around quality and also in terms of scale. So even looking at the industry that's already existing now, we need much more investment in cotton itself to be able to create that linkage. So in terms of that, some of the policy interventions, especially with the federal and regional government integration, is precisely to address that, to make sure that we're able to provide land access to investors who will go into large-scale cotton manufacturing, cotton growing. Yeah.
Thank you. You have been talking about sustainability, mainly about social sustainability. Nowadays it becomes more and more important also to look into the environment, environmental sustainability. Big issues are like, for instance, water consumption in the textile sector and also water pollution. And on the other hand, energy is, very critical. Most of the time it's very expensive. And people are asking more and more for green energy. Could you a little bit describe how these issues are being handled in Ethiopia?
All right, thank you for that. Sustainability is a priority for the Ethiopian government as well, which is very much aligned with the kind of the buyer's compliance considerations. So as government, we're very much committed to both environmental and social sustainability. On the environmental sustainability, if you look at the very design of the industrial parks, for example, they are built with, most of them with a zero liquid discharge system to make sure that industrial waste is properly handled. And on the consumption side, on how to reduce both water and power consumption, there are interventions that IPDC is currently implementing to gauge the current consumption levels and to push companies to more water and energy efficient systems. In addition to that, the source of electricity in Ethiopia is we generate 85% or more of energy from hydropower, which is very green, a sustainable source of energy. And in addition to that, we are now looking at alternative source of energy, solar, wind, especially for the industrial parks, to make sure that we continue to generate sufficient and green energy for the textile and apparel industry.
In line with that also, DESTA has, for example, has invested in rainwater collection system, which is a key in making sure water is not wasted, and also implementing the same principle of zero liquid discharge as a private sector. This is the way, the direction for sustainability.
I think that a great opportunity for Ethiopia will come from inter-African trade. Can you help us understand what is the position of Ethiopia, especially with the COMESA area, please?
Thank you. I would say the Ethiopian government is a forerunner in terms of regional integration. So with the new Prime Minister over the past years, we've been very much leading the conversation around continental integration. So we were one of the first countries to sign the Continental Free Trade Agreement. So that continental level, in addition to the the sub-regional agreements such as the COMESA, under the African CFTA, we are working towards a tariff-free Africa, which will be very important in unlocking the potential. So, as Ethiopia positions itself to be a manufacturing hub in Africa, it will be very vital for us to create that access for companies located in Ethiopia to the rest of the continent. And with that spirit, we're spearheading this African Continental Free Trade Agreement.
Any more questions?
Sorry. Last question from my side regarding the et-Gamma. I've been in different projects trying to work with them, and I have the feeling it's not so well organized. Are you have any impact on that, or are you related to this garment association? Because obviously, that's a very key role also for international cooperation or people who are interested to invest in a country like yours, that they have someone to talk to, someone with a certain degree of competence, so that you can actually arrange certain visits or whatsoever. So I strongly recommend to somehow have an impact on this kind of organization, because it will really make many people's lives easier and many people's decision also easier to invest or not to invest in Ethiopia.
So on the, perhaps Ato Yub can comment on this. Do you wanna?
Yeah, a change has to take place with et-Gamma. You have to remember that et-Gamma was set up before the government has developed the IPDC, and as we saw also the investment office taking place and moving into the apparel and textile association. So as the government moves, we also have to move. et-Gamma is a private association, so there has to be a change. And I think currently, with the support of GIZ, some changes are trying to be implemented. And yes, et-Gamma will have to change to meet the international standard.
Maybe one more question. If buyers would now show interest to come to Ethiopia and see the opportunities, the possibilities, to whom could they contact? How could they organize to visit companies? Are the companies open to show their production to potential buyers? Is there any organization which would support them, or what could one do if one want to visit the country to see how the sector really works?
Absolutely. So the Ethiopian Investment Commission would be the right avenue to do that. We'll be very happy to organize visits and meetings with manufacturers or anyone in the industry within country. That it's part of the service that we give. So I'm happy to give out my cards to anyone interested, and we'll be very happy to host them and show them around. And to your point, just quickly, it's very well taken on the et-Gamma. Unless we have a local private sector that's very strong, it will be very difficult to create those linkages. So it's something for us to work on as government on how we can better support the existing local industry.
Yeah, and also on this point, of course, the national establishment that we normally work with is, of course, has GIZ with et-Gamma, but also, I don't know if you've seen the associations that are being established at industrial park level, who could be very important interlocutors as far as entry into the park level investors are concerned, because they are stronger, they have also a common platform. For example, if as GIZ we want to kind of provide training or some sort of collective development partner supported intervention, we approach the Investors Association, which is registered at Ethiopian Investment Commission, and it makes it really easier, and it's also when compared to ITGAMA, a much more vibrant institutionalization that we find there. But the local association should be as strong, and a lot to learn from Bangladesh, the Bangladeshi association, which we know and work closely with. SINTAC of China, which is again another strong association to look at. Just to add on this point, if there are one or two last questions, then we will have one round of question. Otherwise, yeah. I don't know. Otherwise, I will definitely have to give you, each one of you, to say the last word before closing. So let me start with Lelise, Madame Lelise, so that you can also like have a closing remark before we call it a day. Okay.
So thank you so much. I'd like to say I want to invite all investors and all stakeholders to visit this incredible country. So we are on the way to prosperity, as I've mentioned first. So I want you all to be a part of this prosperity way of working and developing each other. So I want to invite you and use this opportunity to invest in Ethiopia, and it's a great opportunity. And I don't think you will have such kind of dedicated government leaders in other countries. So I want to invite you all to see such reform in the country, and then we are very happy to welcome you. And IPDC and EIC is very open to all of you to work with us and to even to show you our industrial park and other investment as well. So hopefully I'm going to see you the coming weeks or the coming months in Ethiopia. Thank you so much.
Yeah, I basically will be saying source from Ethiopia. See the manufacturers that have already done sourcing, see the results. It's a growing country. This is the opportunity now to make sure that you start sourcing and booking your production lines. Desta is ready, as well as the manufacturers in the industrial park. So source from Ethiopia, invest in Ethiopia.
So Hannah, I know a lot has been said, but if we can also add a few words to close it, and then I would be an honor.
Thank you. So as my fellow speakers put it very well, now is the right time to invest in Ethiopia. So over the past years, we've had significant investment, especially in the apparel and textile sector. Ethiopia is clearly a rising star, not just in the region, but globally in this apparel and textile sector. And with the kind of reforms that we are seeing, Ethiopia is more open than ever for investment in general, and particularly in these sectors of focus. So I would very much encourage you to explore the opportunities to come and see for your own the kind of changes that are underway, and we'll welcome you with open arms. So just to say a very warm welcome to all of you who are considering investment in Ethiopia. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And I also would like to say that GIZ has been supporting the many countries, but in Ethiopia it has been quite some time focusing on job creation, particularly if companies want some support in terms of training and sustainability-related interventions. We've been doing quite well. We partner with the government, both with the EIC and Industrial Parks Development Corporation, and the private sector particularly. And we keep doing that. And I very much, on behalf of GIZ, would like to say thank you for my panelists, and have a great time for the remaining days of the show. And thank you very much.